everyone. Welcome to All Today. We are back again. No off week this week. So how are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm not too bad. Cheston, what's going on?
I'm so tired. I haven't been given a week off by my overlord of a podcast host.
I know, 2 weeks in a row. It's terrible.
Chipping away in the podcast mines, trying to come up with precious content.
Yeah, I know. And speaking of Setzer, would you say the Quarians deserved it? The reason I ask is because Cheston the other day says,
Yesterday.
yes, yesterday, he decided to make fun of me because I was mentioning, Tally was the best girl, and he was like, "Oh no, the Quarians made like a bunch of living slaves and they rebelled." And my argument was, so you're saying like all robots should be treated as humans, like before their AI awakens or whatever?
Yeah, but that wasn't my point. My point was that they created this artificial intelligence that has an adaptive capability that gets stronger the more of them there are, and then they were shocked and awed when they were killed.
I think before the AI awakened and they were doing it, like became like sentient, it was fine. But once like the Geth became aware of what was going on, then it became evil. But
Well, the problem with that standard is by what metric do you judge the awareness of, a possible intelligence? The same way we don't mistreat animals, even though they're not, necessarily as intelligent as we are, is because we can recognize that they feel pain. But for an artificial being that has no real physical existence, that may be more difficult to understand or relate to.
I suppose, I mean, I look at it like we have robots today. To treat them as like equivalent to humans seems laughable. So maybe I'm
Right,
basing it off
but I
that.
would say the Geth, even there's a very very uh, large gulf between robots we have today, like things you might see on an assembly line, or something that's remote controlled, like the Boston Dynamics robots,
Yeah.
and something like the Geth, where even before they're necessarily an intelligent civilization, like a self-sustaining culture, right?
hmm
They're clearly able to autonomously complete tasks and reason to a great degree, to a near human degree, right?
Right.
And I think at that point, you're kind of begging the question of, is this thing like a dog? Is
Okay.
it like as intelligent as like a dog? Would you abuse a dog? That kind of thing, right?
That's completely fair. So what you're saying is that it's a complicated question of no easy answer whether the
Yes.
Quarians deserved it. So just for the record, where I stand, Tally is the best, but we'll let Cheston be deluded as he replays the Mass Effect trilogy. So,
Yeah, watch him come back with Edie as the best girl or something.
That would be pretty dramatic. I don't know what would have to happen for me to turn around on Edie.
yeah, my wife just got the Mass Effect 3, and her reaction to Edie being a party member was disdain, I would say. Because it's like, we only have so many party members in this game, and Edie's in my party. But anyway, off of Mass Effect, I think I will actually start this week, since I've already discussed what I was talking about last week. This week, I've mostly just played Shadowbringers, which is the Final Fantasy XIV expansion. I have finished all the main story quests that is currently available. I've done pretty much every raid I can do, and a lot of other like boss battle sorts of things. And I really quite enjoy this game. It is a lot different than other MMOs in that I feel like it's a little more active, like you positioning and moving around. You do that a lot more. Like I feel like as a healer in WoW, I would mostly like be stationary. There would be times where there'd be a big attack and you'd have to, get a little crazy. But I think I don't know. FF14 feels more like healers aren't always healing. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you're when you're pulling big groups, you're having to cast holy, or if you're a white mage like I am, and during boss battles there are long stretches where you don't actually need to heal, so you should be damaging. So it feels more. It feels like I don't know, like more authentic to Final Fantasy because like when you're playing FF9, if Garnet is your healer, she's not always going to be healing. There's going to be turns where you're having her summon or attack or something. So this feels more authentic to the nature of Final Fantasy. And as a result, I quite enjoy it. I think FF14 is probably my favorite MMO ever, and for if you want my history of MMOs, I played WoW Classic. That was my first one. I think having it be so story based definitely sets it apart because like there is a story in WoW, and I don't know what the hell is going on in it. The way it's portrayed is like mostly just like scrolling quest log stuff, and then you get like a big cutscene in WoW. Whereas in FF14, you get cutscenes all the time. Your main story is completely focused. There's like a noted segregation between main story quests and like filler side content. It's just a different experience. Honestly, you don't even need to play it as an MMO. Like you can just queue up and like group finder and find stuff to do. You don't need to talk to anybody. Like as long as you know what you're doing, you can get things done. And for someone like me that doesn't really like socializing with other people that play video games, it's I actually quite enjoy it. So lots of fun.
I don't have any idea why you wouldn't want to socialize with people who play video games.
I know it's a mystery to everybody. They're just the most amazing people.
Yeah, you rat bastard.
Um, Going back to WoW, one of my pet peeves with WoW is that it's very hard to see raid content if you're not like a, I don't know, hardcore player, because you have to have like a group of people that, and you have to go like at a specific time if you want to make meaningful progression, unless it's changed over the years.
It kind of has.
Okay, okay, that's
Yeah, they
fair.
have Raid Finder now, but
Mhm.
it's not great.
Back in my day, to sound like an old man, when I played WoW, yes, Wrath of the Lich King was the first one with Dungeon Finder, and you could not do like Ice Crown Citadels through that or whatever. And from what I understand, even now, like the raid finder is a lower tier difficulty than the normal raids, so you're not getting like the full experience, but you can. And like FF14, like I did all the most recent raid, the near one, and I just hopped in Duty Finder, found it quickly, and there we go. There was one tier, and I did it. I've started like the most recent boss quest, which is called Eden, and they have like higher tier difficulties if you want that. But if you just want to see the boss battles, it's pretty quick and simple. So
Hmm.
this game does not really mask the content. If you want to see it, there are multiple ways to do it, and there's also no need to create alt characters, which is great. If you want to have one character and play all the jobs, you can. So I just like the way this game does things.
So there's not like you don't commit to a class?
You don't
Nope.
have to.
Huh. Okay.
You can switch anytime.
Yeah, if you get to like level 40 and say like, man, I really don't like tanking, you can just like play red mage or something. You can pretty much get whatever you want out of it. If you want to be a hardcore player and do high end stuff, you can. But if you want to be a casual player and see a lot of things, you also can. It's quite nice. I also appreciate that like it's so quick to get geared up and whatnot, because if you want to
Yeah.
just play the story content and dip out for a while until the next patch comes out, totally valid. You come back and you're not like completely out geared and outmatched.
Yeah, your tomestones will usually get you back up to where you need to be pretty quick, and these days, crafted gear is also very cheap.
Yes.
So chances are you'll have the gil to buy gear that you need.
Oh yeah. When I hit level 80, the first thing I did was hit the auction house and just bought like all my gear, which is like item level 510, and I was immediately geared up for everything right away. And there was no like you have to get attuned for this, or you have to run like 80 dungeons you don't want to do to get like this one piece of gear. I was just ready to go, and it was refreshing. I think for people that like enjoy MMOs but don't necessarily want to play like lose your life playing one, this is quite the way to go.
I really enjoy that anytime you post something about this on Twitter and you include a picture, it's the most inscrutable picture of all time. I guess, but as someone who doesn't play it, I can never tell what's happening. It just looks like a big mass of people. It looks like a scene out of Ready Player One.
Yeah.
But I know that it makes you happy. So
Well, if you post a picture of in the middle of a raid and WoW, it's the same thing.
I know. It's just my lack of knowledge
Yeah.
of FF14 makes it such that it's like it just kind of looks like a bunch of like 2015 era character models dancing around a screen, flinging a bunch of particle effects all over the place.
But I think you should really check it out, Cheston. 1 to 60, free to play. So
Like the client's free too, everything.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
you can't like make groups, but you can
Sure.
use the duty finder, which
Yeah,
is
but you could test out and see, if it's your speed. I haven't played and enjoyed an MMO since WoW, so that would be worthwhile to me.
yeah. I think it is certainly worth a try.
Yeah. You think this more than Burning Crusade Classic?
Well, I find Square Enix less objectionable of a company than Blizzard, so yes. But also like TBC Classic, you're going a lot like to the like 2000. When did that come out? Like 2007 or 8?
2006.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh wow,
Like that.
man,
It's
I feel
old.
old
Yeah.
because I bought that when it came out.
Yes, we did.
Same.
We bought the strategy guide.
Yes, we
That's how big
did.
of chumps we were.
We were big chumps. Like TBC Classic, like that's a lot of WoW Classic where it's there's no duty finder. So if you're not playing all the time, you're not gonna have like your raid like a raid group. You're not gonna be able to do Karazhan randomly. You know what I mean? And a lot of the mechanics, I don't know, are more archaic. If you were experiencing Burning Crusade at the time, like back in 2006, you would probably enjoy it. But for fresh players, that seems insane to me. I don't see how anyone that like wasn't around for WoW Classic could enjoy it. Times have changed too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think people are a lot more antisocial now than they used to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
the big thing back in the day was the communities you make. The server community was a big deal. Like you'd have like server-wide blacklists of players. Like this guy is a ninja or whatever they would call it. That just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. The only way I'd ever play that MMO again fully is if I could somehow find all of the terrible players who are as bad as me that I used to run with. And whenever they did Classic last time, they did do like a homecoming style forum thing where people came on and said, "Hey, here's my old username, here's my old server," and I flipped through that and none of those people were still there. So, FF14 would be the best chance for me to get in. I just have to get
Yes.
the gumption to download that client. Is that coming to Xbox? Are they actually doing
I mean,
that?
they've talked about it. Like I feel like for years and years. But I imagine like a hurdle for that is crossplay because Sony hates that, and FF14 would not work without crossplay. Like if an Xbox only server
Well,
would be
no,
a disaster.
Yeah, that
So
an MMO without crossplay would be kind of silly.
so I imagine that's a hurdle for it. But I can't imagine it would be a holdout for long. Basically, every Final Fantasy ever is on Xbox at this point. So
Well, I mean, if you don't consider games that happened before the PS1 as real.
I do not.
Okay, fair.
No.
Well, I was going to ask you, one, now that you've actually beaten the story and gotten all the way through it, what are your thoughts on the story as a whole and on Shadowbringers in particular?
The story I think's interesting. I think people might overrate it a little, but you brought up a good point to me the other day that it's like you need to put that in perspective. Like this is an MMO story, and you're right. Like if I look at previous MMO stories, like they shouldn't even exist. They're nothing, and this has interesting. Like the world has like a deep lore, but I think it's solid.
And now that we've got that on record, would you mind repeating your question that you asked me about the box art?
Oh, well, this was more of a joke. But I noticed that one of the main characters in Shadowbringers and also Stormblood, Ardbert.
What?
Ardbert is his
Advert,
name.
Alzalay?
Yeah, you see that? I'm glad you said that because whenever I see Advert Ozalay, I think of Ardbert from FF14. Advert Ozalay is a pitcher for the Chicago Cubs. Ardbert is like the Warrior of Darkness, and I think his character model looks a lot like the original box out art for vanilla FF14. So in my head, I was stringing it together like oh, is this guy like from the FF, like the vanilla FF14 era?
Yeah, when I told my wife, who also plays FF14, that you asked that question, she laughed out loud. Like, how could you miss that one, man?
Well, no, it wasn't a serious question. It was more like these look a lot alike.
Yeah, that's intentional.
Well, I didn't know that. I
How
thought
could
maybe.
you not pick up on that, man?
Well, because I didn't. It's not like I have a copy of the of vanilla FF14 ready to go and like, hey, look, here's the
That
box art.
character, that character, he's in every single trailer for every single expansion. He's on the box art for every single expansion.
Well, I don't look at trailers and shit. Come on. I look. It was just a big boner on my part. What do you want from me?
Yeah, remember this big boner when I'm recalling many of my big boners here later, because I think all of mine vastly outnumber and make Derek's look like chump change.
Yeah, just don't pick up on things.
Please look forward to my boner.
Yeah, of course. The patch 5.55 comes out on Tuesday, which will have some more story content, and that's the end of the story content till the expansion in the fall. And that's probably where I'm going to duck out for a little bit so I don't get burned out before the expansion. But I enjoyed my time with it. It's been a great go. I am not looking forward to what I'm playing next, which is probably going to be Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. And the reason I'm not looking forward to that is because I'm going to be paying $49.99 for a PS2 port on, I don't know, Switch or PS5, whatever I decide to get it on.
Simp.
I agree. I am a pay pig, but I'm enabling this practice, but I really want to play this game. So.
I just have to say, I'm going to the Final Fantasy XIV website to try and find this client, and this website is impossible to navigate.
You can probably get it on Steam.
Probably, because this is not working. This is taking me back to the old days of Play Online. That's not a place I like to revisit.
I kind of agree. I think their website's hard to navigate, but
I mean,
I only have to do it when I'm
Eastern web
resubscribing.
design is in a different place than Western web design.
But I think I'm an insane person because I think with the new expansion, I'm going to try to get it on both PlayStation and PC. So like if I want to play it on the TV, I can.
I don't think there's like account transfer, is there?
Well, you don't have to account transfer. You like on the subscription page, you like it shows what clients you have. So I believe I can just use my username and log in on PS5 if I've got the up-to-date expansion. So I'm pondering that because I think there are some nights where just like the patch content is like a lot of going around and watching cutscenes for 2 hours and then playing a quest or a dungeon. I think something like that would be better on a couch because like on PC, like I'm like, okay, I have been watching cutscenes for an hour and a half. I am kind of like getting distracted by tabs. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But we'll see if I'm that crazy or not when it comes time.
Hey man, I believe in you.
I believe in me too. I do think I'm crazy enough for that. But for now, that'll do it for my FF14 shenanigans. So let's go with Setzer next. What have you been up to?
I have also resubscribed to Shadowbringers
All
for a
right.
very different reason. My 8-year-old Steel Series Sensei mouse finally bit the bullet. So I got a Logitech G600 MMO mouse with the buttons on the side.
Oh
Have you seen
my.
those?
Hardcore.
And I actually got this for Blender. I've been learning Blender, and it's a lot easier to just like press with my thumb than contort my hand, my left hand. But it's also clearly designed for MMOs. So I resubbed Shadowbringers just to try it out, and it is so much easier
Is it?
to play this game. Yeah. I mostly play, Gunbreaker these days, Dark Knight, and you have so many cooldowns that I just find it a lot easier to, like, click with my thumb and instantly have the cooldown I want, as opposed to, like, did I put that on shift? Did I put that on alt, and then like run my hand over to the 0 key or the 9 key or whatever.
I'm a filthy gamepad player, so I find the maneuverability of the joystick is kind of handy in FF14. as opposed to WASD. But that's just me. And I don't think it would work very well for every class. I started a gunbreaker the other night, and I am concerned about how many abilities there are. So
Yeah, I actually think it's made Gunbreaker the easiest for me. I'll say that Gunbreaker, personally I find it pretty complex, but once you have all of your moves at level 80, that's when it really starts to come together.
it's one of those things where you play it, and the more you play it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah, it's more like a DPS class where it's a lot about, timing within the window of your buff and stuff like that, as opposed to resource management.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot more like formulaic and rhythmic than something like Dark Knight. You don't have all of your tools for spending and managing your resources, so it gets a little clunky there.
Yeah, I just wanted to play a Gunbringer because I like Final Fantasy VIII, and that's the Gunblade class. So there you go.
Oh, we have gunblades?
Yes, that's how deep I am in the games. I just want to play them because they remind me of one of my favorite Final Fantasies. So there you go. If they ever added like a Blitzball player class, that's my new main. Absolutely.
Oh man, if they ever made a blitzball game, you'd be dead.
Oh, I know. Well, there's people that jokingly ask for each expansion, like to make a Blitzball mini game. I'm like, well, I'm not joking. I would totally play that. Whenever they had a triple triad to FF14, I actually resubbed for a month because I wanted to try it, and I didn't enjoy how it was implemented in the game, and I still don't really. But I love triple triad, so I would certainly give Blitzball the same benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, man, I'd be
Yeah.
worried about you. I hope they never do that.
Me too. That'd be bad for me. Bad for my marriage.
I think she knew what she was getting into.
Oh, totally. Our first dance was to an FF10 song. I think it's out there.
Oof. But yeah, other than FFXIV, I started playing Medieval again. Yeah, not doing a full run or anything, but they added RTX, ray tracing,
Hmm.
for the entire game. And oh my god, this must be like how console players feel going from like PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 or something.
It's that big of a deal, huh?
Yes, it is beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't know you had a ray tracing card.
Yeah, I have a lowly 2060. I've been meaning to upgrade, but as we'll talk about later, that's not exactly possible right now. I mean, if I were to make a game, I would want it to have this RTX and medieval style because it is the best of, the kind of Quake, PlayStation 1, 90s, early 2000s nostalgia, but with some incredible, like, mind-blowing graphical effects.
I only have a 1080, so I can't view ray tracing, but that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, the water reflections, the lighting, holy shit. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow. Impressive. I'm jealous.
Even if you can't play it, look up some video and just, like, see what's going on with this shit.
I will have to do that. I am intrigued. It's a very interesting combination of technology. You have like the retro Doom looking stuff and then modern stuff with ray tracing. It's a mixture of worlds. I approve of this.
I also started playing another boomer shooter, HROT, H-R-O-T. This one's still in early access, but it was, maybe still is, on sale.
Mhm.
And I'd had my eye on it for a while, so I decided, what the hell, I'll just pick it up. It's much more in the vein of something like Dusk than a Medieval, but it is also very good. It's more unforgiving than Dusk, where if you're low on health in HROT, you are going to be low on health for a long time, and there is no autosave. You better remember to mash that save, and if you get low on health, you just reload.
Yeah.
If you get low on health, you're going to be hearing that dum 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 heartbeat noise for a long time.
I kind of wish games would not do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if you play like the old Pokemon games and you're low on health and it's just constantly beeping at you, very obnoxious.
But yeah, HROT doesn't have all its levels yet. What it is there, this is kind of like a communist Soviet dystopia kind of game. It goes in some pretty crazy directions later on in the first episode that's released so far, but I recommend it.
Well, I have to give it a go. I do have a Medieval and Dusk on your recommendations, so I'm I'm interested in the boomer shooters myself, so
And finally, I played the PlayStation 3 classic Journey.
that is a PlayStation 3 classic, all right.
Huh.
What did you think?
Yeah. That's
It was a mixed bag.
Was anyone else playing? Like, did you ever encounter anyone else?
I did. I encountered two other people.
Okay, I was gonna be like, that's a big part of that game. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the second level where you make a bridge out
Mhm.
of the ribbons, I encountered another player in there, but he didn't seem to get what was going on. And I thought he was a bot, actually, because, I assumed no one else would be playing at that time.
Well, yeah.
And the way it worked was, like, it kept making the little, like, I didn't realize there was another player in there. And it kept making the little, like, white flash on the side of the screen to indicate that he was like chirping at me. So I went and ran over to him, and he like activated the first part of the bridge, and it struck me as like a scripted sequence with a bot or something. Because after that, I ran around and activated all the rest of the ribbons in the level, and he just kind of like ran into walls and ran around aimlessly.
Oh, jeez.
And like I kept trying to guide him up the bridge once I had completed it, and he wouldn't do it. He was just like running circles.
Being a real dope.
Yeah, so I thought like surely this guy's a bot, and just left him in my dust. I didn't see another player till the very, very last level, and he and I, were just kind of neck and neck racing through it, because that's kind of like a triumphant celebration level.
Yeah, climbing up that
Um,
mountain.
And so he and I, just kind of raced up there as fast as we could, and then chirped at each other on the long walk into the final scene. So yeah, overall I liked it. I think it's very visually pretty,
Oh, it is. Yeah.
even to this day. I liked the art design as well. I liked the story they were telling. That being said, I thought the gameplay was a little boring.
Yeah. It's just walking, really.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have minded that so much if I had had a better idea of where to go. Like, on one of the levels, I couldn't find one of the symbols that makes your scarf longer.
Hmm.
And I had got to the end of the level and seen, like, oh, one of the symbols is missing on the pedestal, so I have to go find it. It took me, like, half an hour of wandering through this desert just to find this stupid symbol.
my memory of that game, having played it twice, is that it's very hand-holdy in a lot of ways. I felt like it was pretty guidey.
Yeah, at one point on that same level, I was actually missing two symbols for a time, and at one point a shooting star came out of nowhere and like pointed me to where one of the missing symbols was.
So there's
Like
your
it
hand
shot
holder.
out of the sky and landed where I could see. So that helped me find that one, but the last one, like there was no hint whatsoever. It was in the corner of the map, way out of the way, and there were so many sand dunes blocking my line of sight that I couldn't possibly see it. And on the sliding level, I slid like right past two of the symbols without realizing it, and there's no way to go back and try again. So
I didn't know you could even have like a fail state on the sliding.
I didn't fail. I moved on, but I didn't collect all the symbols.
Oh, see, I didn't even realize the game had like side objectives. To be honest,
Yeah, there
That
are
was
little
a-
symbols you can collect that make your scarf longer and let you fly longer.
yeah. No, I just ignored those and slid
Yeah.
like a little goober.
It is fun.
Yeah, I like the slide part. Yeah, that game I remember pretty well, despite I think the last time, probably 5 years ago now, was the last time I played it. But some of those moments still stick out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm surprised you played it in this present year because I'm thinking like that's a game of its time. Like I don't think I could enjoy it without like
Eh,
bumping into people all over the
Well,
place. You know what I mean?
I never really jumped into people all over the place, but whenever you did find someone, it did feel special, even years after launch.
To be fair, I played it, on PS3 around when it came out. I've probably ran into like 15, 20 people because like when you beat the game, it shows like who you adventured with or whatever. And I think it was just really neat. And because I experienced it that way, I don't think I could play and like only experience two people and have fun with it. It's a game of its time for me.
It's a nice game. I assume you got through it in one sitting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's only like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's the way to play that game. It's just if you have a little bit of time, carve it out and just go with it.
Yeah. I enjoy it myself too. I'm glad you got to experience it at some point.
Now I would really like you to experience that game company's other PS3 game, Flower, and see
Yes.
if you hate it as much
SteamWorld
as I
Dig
do.
2 again.
No.
No, I hate
No.
Flower. I love SteamWorld Dig. Don't like Flower.
Yeah, flower. You're playing as a flower.
Flower is. I felt like Journey honed their artistic craft, and Flower was like a really pretentious proof of concept.
Oh, it was very pretentious.
Was not especially enjoyable or insightful or anything. Like, Journey made me feel things, Flower made me hate. Which is a feeling, I guess. So,
Yeah, that's a feeling.
yeah, I guess good for them.
But what made you want to try this, Setzer?
Yeah, I mean, I've always found it really visually interesting, and people have always said it's a really unique game. So when I saw it on Steam sale, I was like, well, why not? I'll pick it up. $7.
Yeah. Good price.
Yeah.
But yeah, you put that right. When I think of PS3 Classic, that's one of the ones that comes up. That was a big deal in the PS3.
Yeah, no Little Big Planet cart, but
No. Or Mod Nation Racers.
no.
But then again, what is?
No, exactly. All right, well, thank you, Setzer. So, Cheston, what have you been playing?
So, a few things. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was playing it a little bit before we started recording, and it just irritated me. So, I wanted to give a shout out to MLB The Show again, and specifically its Road to the Show RPG mode. And I wanted to say that as much as I enjoy it as a podcast game, I continue to be frustrated by the fact that they decided to write the story for you and pigeonhole you into being a top 50 prospect who's supposed to be the next up-and-coming thing, because I suck. I cannot hit consistently to save my life, and it really bothers me when the game tells me I'm an all-star player, and then I strike out 5 times in a game.
Well, that's a story in sports too, though. You have like the highly touted prospect that's like a dud. So that's
Yeah,
that's your story. You
I
suck.
would prefer that the story be written by, my experience and not just the game saying, "Oh, you're a star," and then when you get in there, they're like, "Oh, God, what is this problem? Dude has like bad depth perception or something because he can't, can't spot a curve. I can't spot a curveball. I just can't, or knuckleball. One of the two. I cannot spot, and when they throw it at me." The game has this adaptive difficulty, and so I've advanced up to a pretty high level of hitting difficulty. And at this high level, I cannot see anything. It doesn't help that my character starts out with, bottom dweller stats, because that's how the game works. But again, I would not mind any of that if the game didn't have all these cutscenes where my character is told that he is the second coming, but also kind of sucks.
Why don't you turn the depth of difficulty off? Put it on like All Star or something.
Well, the reason that I do that is because I like adaptive difficulty in sports games, because I hate it when the simulation starts to really diverge from reality. So when it gets too easy, and then I have like a game that doesn't make sense statistically. And I mean, this doesn't really have that problem. This is a pretty great simulation, all things considered. I just wish they let me have my own, interpretation of what's happening, instead of having those schmucks in their Zoom call come on every 2 minutes to say, "Man, what's going on with this kid? He's supposed to be Jesus, but he's more like Joseph, if you know what I mean, huh?"
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. So, yeah, I like that game, but God, it's killing me. It's killing me. The story stuff I hate so bad.
Other than MLB The Show, what have you been up to?
So I've been playing Mass Effect,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been playing Mass Effect 1, and I will do a very quick overview of my experience with Mass Effect, as I have played the trilogy before. I played it a few years after everybody else, I think in probably 2013, 2014, as I was leaving college. That was when I wrapped up the trilogy with 3, and I played 1 and 2 a little bit before that. But my original run of Mass Effect is pretty notorious. I was a virgin shepherd. Didn't even once consider copulating with my peers. I lost just about everybody in the suicide run at the end of Mass Effect 2. Didn't even know that Legion existed, let alone awaken him from his slumber, which is pretty crazy, given that I believe the game tells you as much several times.
It does.
Yeah, and 3 was a weird experience, and I don't think anything crazy happened there, but the Mass Effect that a lot of people liked is not the Mass Effect I experienced. And I liked Mass Effect 1 quite a bit, and 2 troubled me, and 3 was mostly forgettable for me. So when this Legendary Edition came out, I had some fond feelings for the series based on the first game, and I got kind of caught up in the old zeitgeist and Derek's wife playing through it, so I bought in, but I told myself I have to play it different. I have to do it different. I have to see the game that everybody else saw in 2007 and 2010 and 2012 respectively. So I'm playing it slow. I'm doing side quests, and I'm exploring, and I'm talking to my crewmates. I'm playing the female shepherd, which everybody says is the better shepherd. I've heard. Kind of split on that at the moment, to be honest. And I have to say, I still really like Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
I think it is a very solid first game in a trilogy. I think they did a great job in the art department creating these interesting races and creating interesting backstories for a lot of them, and I've been spending time in the Codex, which has been a lot of fun to read up on these past events that established the world of Mass Effect 1. And I haven't gotten very far, but I've just been having a great time, lingering around in the Citadel or taking my time flying to different planets and encountering different little stories here and there. I have really had a great time with it, and I'm interested to see if playing this way will change how I feel about 2, which is the game that I tend to be the most different on in terms of my perspective. I don't know that anything will save 3, but I'm curious. So, yeah, overall I have to say I like it. I haven't played the games in a long time, so it's hard for me to say what the new version does. It does feel to me like the shooting in the first game is improved. I didn't really hate it in the first time, but it does seem a little easier to me now. It seems a little more intuitive, and I think that's mostly for the good. I'm still doing a lot of the, RPG moves with the command menu you can bring up, but when I'm not in that, the shooting feels a lot more modern. I think the character models look split.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50-50. Like, the aliens look pretty good. Like, Rex looks pretty good. But, that's a great character design, as is. But when you get to Captain Anderson, who's just a normal human being, like, I don't know what happened to his face.
He looks
but it's
bad.
pretty distracting.
But I will say that in this collection, the games get progressively better looking.
As they did in real time.
As they did in real time. Mass Effect 2 looked pretty good. Mass Effect 3 basically looks like a modern game from what I've seen of it. Like, it's just amazing looking.
Yeah.
So it just depends. But, Mass Effect 1 is definitely the weakest looking.
Well, yeah. 1 to 2 was a pretty big jump even at the time.
Yes, and it's a big jump in this collection as well. So
yeah, and I think 2 was their first game under EA, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2 was the first post-EA game.
Okay, so you can see that in the budget. And the first game is just charming, despite, in a lot of cases, looking kind of rough around the edges. The frame rate has been wonderful. That is something I noticed right off the bat. And that is super smooth. I'm playing on a Series S, so I get buttery smooth 60 frames per second for the most part. I think the Digital Foundry video showed some stutter on Eden Prime, but I'm not someone with a discerning eye, so I really didn't notice that. I have noticed some screen tearing, but that's
Oh,
mostly on the
la-di-da.
Citadel. Yeah, that's mostly on the Citadel, and it doesn't bother me too much. It would look worse if it's worth the upgrade compared to playing the original game, because I've seen the original game since, and it's not a looker.
No, it is
So,
not. Not.
so overall, I'm enjoying this, but a lot of people are really zooming through the series. Like your wife is already through 2,
Yeah, she's on 3.
so I'm gonna be a lot slower in my playthrough. I plan on seeing some of the DLC in each game and getting the more full experience and seeing how that changes my outlook overall.
Speaking of like your virgin shepherd nature, like looking back at Mass Effect 1, I can't really blame you because like the romance options are so boring. Like
Was it
L-
Liara?
Liara and Ashley for male shepherd,
Oh, well,
and
I
like
would stay far away from Ashley.
Ashley space racist, famously
Yeah.
so, and Liara just boring. Her personality is
What
just
about
like
so
I like
Femship
Protheans.
gets what? Caden?
Caden and Liara. So
Oh, nice.
Caden, who doesn't have a personality in Mass
No.
Effect 1, and Liara, who, again, just boring. So,
Well, I didn't say that in this run I will not be a virgin shepherd again. I didn't say that.
I know. I've
Because the
asked.
relationship stuff is never something I care about in games.
Yeah, you dropped Fire Emblem for the Switch because you're a baby, and
That's because I hated developing relationships with the characters.
but my wife said she met Kai Ling last night, and
Oh boy.
so I look forward to her further interactions with that guy because he's one. I think he's probably my least favorite character in the entire trilogy. He is like Shadow the Hedgehog Edge.
Yeah, it's weird to match that game, like what my memory of Mass Effect 3 is, which again I don't remember much, other than like I remember Kai Lang, I remember my ending, which was everybody else's ending, but I remember mine, which color it was.
Was it green? That was mine.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like the game that Mass Effect 3 is and the game that Mass Effect 1 is, I can't reconcile them because playing through 1 now, it is still a kind of a stupid military space game, but at the same time, it feels a lot slower and more methodical, and
Oh yeah.
it feels like if it was on the Star Trek Star Wars spectrum, it would,
Mm-hmm.
be a little tiny bit closer to Star Trek. Whereas 3 is so far on the Star Wars prequel end of the spectrum.
Oh, it's not prequel.
Mhm.
It's
Sequel.
too action packed for that.
Yeah, I guess
It's J.J.
the
Abrams.
prequels are pretty action packed. Man, I
Phantom
watched
Menace
them
is all
last
about
year.
trade tariffs.
Okay, but 2 and 3 are like super lightsaber flingy movies. So don't tell me that 2 and 3 aren't action movies. I'll give you that the JJ movies have more action. I'm not
I
going
would
to
say
argue
they're
that.
more like the sequels because they don't even pretend to have something going on.
Well, we'll get to that when we talk about 2, because even though I'm going to be more open-minded about 2, as a piece of the plot, I think my opinion on 2 will not change. I think that I think that cannot be argued that 2, as much as people may love it, did some things that 3 could not possibly have fixed. Like, they made some decisions there that just set them up for failure down the road.
Also, like the Star Wars sequels.
Yes, exactly. It is just like The Last Jedi. The Suicide Run, while maybe a novel idea for a video game, is gotta be one of the dumbest things to do in the second chapter of a game. I just don't understand it. Don't get it. Yeah. How did your wife like the Suicide Run? Did she do okay?
She used the guide, so everyone lived. I told her to do that, though.
I'm not using a guide. I'm gonna
Yeah.
chance it.
Well,
Sure.
the problem is like, if Tally and Garrus die, that's 2 crucial party members for 3, and I would say you need to at least make sure they live. Morden, he needs to live because his moment in 3, like, if it's just some random Solarian scientist, it's not the same impact. Sane needs to live because his stuff in 3, like, that's not going to be the same without him there. So there's a lot, like, of 3 emotional storytelling that would suck if you don't have those people live in 2.
Which is why it's stupid to do it in
Yes.
the second game.
Agreed.
And not the third game, where it'd be a nice, memorable thing like, oh, dang, we've had these relationships develop over 3 games, and now I've lost half of them. Whereas in the second game, when I played Mass Effect 2, I played Mass Effect 1 and 2 right back to back. When I finished 2, I was so pissed off, I sold 3, and I didn't play it for at least another year when it was super cheap.
I think I'm different on the suicide mission. I think it's like so interesting that everyone can die, but
That's interesting, but it's just, if you're writing a trilogy, why would you throw that in the middle?
my assumption I think at the time was that 3 would just be a whole new cast because how could you
Well,
plan
that would have
around
been the better solution than what
how
they
can you
did.
plan? Well, I mean that's why James Vega's there. Buff McLaser Chad, whatever you want to call him.
I'll have to look it up. I don't know if, like, maybe BioWare, fresh off of their acquisition, was worried that that might be their last game with the Mass Effect series. I can't imagine, but,
Well, given how it ends, I'd hope they don't think that. Given that it's
well,
like a total cliffhanger.
I know, but that's not unusual for games to end on cliffhangers and never be followed up on. But the only reason I can think of doing a suicide run is if you're trying to get your shit in before your curtain is called.
I just don't think they would let the elusive man hang around the end of 2 and just be like,
That's fair.
he's
That's
just
why I said
smoking
I
a
need to look it up
yeah.
a little more. I just
Yeah.
think I think 2 is such a complicated thing, so I'm looking forward to playing 2. I'm not really looking forward that much to 3, just because my memories of it are pretty blurry.
I think you might enjoy it more than you think, just because it'll be like a
I
dumb
enjoyed
action.
it at the time. I just, like, it's so forgettable.
Well, I'm just saying,
in
like
my
it'll be like a dumb action game. It'll be like this is
Yeah.
like we'd be like this is stupid, but you're like having fun with it.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy as much of Mass Effect 1 as I possibly can before the series gets a lot dumber.
I will also say there's probably something to like not having to wait for Mass Effect 3. Like I remember the build up for it being pretty
Didn't
hard.
have to.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see where the story goes. So like if you don't have like that hype, I think it's
Yeah.
probably a little different.
Well, that would be better if this was my first experience, so I'll be interested to see how your wife feels. That was how it worked for me with Lost. Most people who hate Lost will admit that if you watched it streaming instead, when you can watch it all back to back, it is just a lot better. You didn't have the time to speculate and theorize and come up with all the cool things the show wouldn't do eventually. And now Mass Effect is going to have a similar thing, though some of Mass Effect's problems are not related to their solutions. It's just related to a weird turn in direction after the second
Pacing.
game.
Agreed. Yeah, that is an issue.
But hey, like I said, for now I really like Mass Effect 1, so I'm going to keep enjoying it.
I just look forward to what your thoughts on the DLC are because I'm pretty sure you've not
Does
played.
1 have DLC?
It does, but it's not included in the collection because the source code is lost forever. Very Kingdom Hearts esque, and the cost for redoing it was not in the budget for this collection.
But
so
2 and 3 have their DLC.
2 and 3 have everything you would get.
Did 1 have good DLC? I don't remember anybody
No.
ever talking about it.
I've heard it's bad actually,
Okay.
but 2 and 3 full DLC, so you could see how bad Arrival is, which is the prequel to 3 DLC.
Yeah. But I've heard so much about Shadow Broker, so.
My wife was actually not so high on it, so
Okay.
so
Yeah,
I
don't
think
blame her.
I think my nostalgia for it maybe was misleading.
Well, no, well. Did she like the games overall, though? I know
Yeah.
she didn't really like 1 that much.
Yeah, but I mean,
Which I think is crazy, but she's not much of a Star Trek person, is she?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I think she's enjoying it.
Don't know. You're married to her, man.
Well, we don't talk about Star Trek and Star Wars.
Figured that would just be like the first thing you ask. Like, hey, where do you stand? For the record, my wife answered Star Trek at the time.
Really?
Yeah, because she had never seen Star Wars.
Has she seen Star Trek? Or
Her
talking
dad-
about J.J.
her dad liked
Abrams?
Star Trek.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The old ones. He did not watch the JJ movies.
Fair enough.
But now she would be a Star Wars person because she did not think The Rise of Skywalker was the worst thing she'd ever seen in a theater. Weirdly enough.
Well, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen in a theater. That's epic movie.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But it was not a good movie.
I don't want to talk about Star Wars.
No.
Let's do
No,
something
sir.
else.
But yeah, to answer your question, seems to be enjoying the trip. Qualms aside, with like Mass Effect 3 stuff, she seems to enjoy it. All right, well then let's get on to news. It's a pretty short week, but that's okay. We talked a lot about what we've been playing a lot. So what's going on there, Setzer?
Well, we've got some big news for Final Fantasy fans this week. Not only did the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Fest include many exciting announcements for the MMO's upcoming Endwalker expansion pack, but longtime Final Fantasy brand manager Shinji Hashimoto has handed the reins to series veteran Yoshinori Kitase. Derek, what are your thoughts on this new direction?
I don't know. I don't have any. I don't have any thoughts. I think Final Fantasy's been kind of heading in a good direction for a little bit. I think 15 was kind of mediocre, but 7 remake is solid. The way FF14 is going has been pretty good, so I think the franchise is in solid hands.
Do you think it'll head in a better direction with
Yoshinori Kitase?
Yes.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like of the wait and see approach, because every time I assume something is going to be good, I am proven vastly wrong. For wrestling, WWE 2K, I thought like 2K acquiring the rights to make wrestling games would be a good thing, and it's been the worst thing ever. So for something like this, I want to wait to see what like FF16, like what that's like.
Yeah. So how long has Shinji been in charge? Like what is the Final Fantasy that he took over with? Because that would color my perception.
He took over as brand manager, but he's been working with the franchise since Final Fantasy VII, where he was the publicity producer, and
seems like he did a good job on that.
Yeah, he's produced pretty much every Final Fantasy and a ton of spin-offs since then, as well as the Kingdom Hearts games. Kitase has been with Square longer, but it's kind of difficult to see like who had the impact on what, because a lot of these games were produced by both of them.
I see.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a wait and see approach. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of different from you, Derek. I think Final Fantasy, I think 14 is the best the series has probably been in the public eye since 10, in my opinion. I don't know if you would agree, because 12 was, at the time, even though it's trendy now, at the time was a little bit of a non-starter, and 13 was a flop in a lot of people's perception, though I think it sold okay. But until 14 and 7 Remake, it felt like to me that the series was like a wayward soul.
well, that's the two most recent ones.
Right, exactly. So I'm saying that maybe, it says the source we're using for this indicates that this man is a instrumental figure in the development of 7 Remake and 14, which are the two Final Fantasy games that I would say are noteworthy in recent times. So, feels like a good move to me, but I'm not the Final Fantasy guy.
I like 13.
Well, I know you like 13, but I mean, it would be hard for you to deny that Final Fantasy has been a shell of itself post-10 until recently.
I would say the prestige has taken a hit.
Yeah.
It is not the franchise it once was.
It's not. 15 was not like a big deal for a lot of people, the way it should have been.
No, it did not feel as exciting as a release. Like if you compare the hype around 7 Remake to 15, it's not even close. And, if you go back to 2000 and 2001 or whatever and tell us like, Derek, there'll be a Final Fantasy come out and it won't be like the end of the world. And I'll be like, what? Are you crazy? But I mean, it really wasn't that huge of a deal. So you're right.
Yeah. 13 did a lot of damage.
It did.
That does make me think, I wonder if the launch of 16 will still be in the shadow in that same way, even if it's a really great game.
In the shadow of 7?
In the shadow of the series' decline.
Ah.
Like, will this be the game that, breaks through and finally starts getting back to that prestige?
It's so nebulous right now.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot about it. So the hype to me seems pretty dull right
now.
The
hype is just like on what you know about it, and what we know about is nothing.
It's on how much the name Final Fantasy excites you on its own.
Exactly, and I'm wondering if this will be, when all is said and done, not necessarily right now, but when all is said and done, if that'll be the game to kind of get it back in the mainstream, so to speak.
Too bad it didn't hit this year, because let me tell you, big budget RPG on these new consoles, which have no games would be quite the thing, I think.
Well, I don't know. Like, no one wants to say it, but I think the step away from turn-based RPGs has kind of been what's done at the Final Fantasy.
Well, I want to say it.
Because they kind of like want to be like a mixture between action and RPG, and I know I personally just want to play an RPG. um, and so that's I think the people that play Final Fantasy are probably into that. So like they're chasing this demographic that aren't terribly interested in what they have to say. So I think FF16 would be better served to go back to turn-based, but the turn-based arena also has more mainstream competition now with like Persona than
I mean, that shocks me that you'd say that, considering how much you liked DMC5.
it's different though. Like I go
Yeah,
to
but
Final
they've got
Fantasy.
the DMC guy making the gameplay, so wouldn't you like to
Oh,
have the best of
well,
both
I
worlds?
forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if you could
I don't
have
know.
like a really good classic Final Fantasy story, like they seem to want to get back to, and you could have the gameplay you liked from DMC5.
I want to see how it's implemented though.
Of course, yeah.
They whenever the FF16 debuted, they showed I guess what some gameplay was like, and what they showed in the trailer looked like FF15's gameplay to me.
Oh,
I assume that was just like I don't know, proof of concept, just like this is what we think it'll look like. But if it's just like FF15 again, that gameplay is very mediocre, so I'm not really looking forward to that. But
Yeah,
I need to know more. If we're talking about visually speaking, FF16 is not going to set anyone's world on fire from what we've seen.
no.
It looks like FF14 graphics, which is not good for a single player game.
I wonder if they're just. I wonder if to them it's a very secondary Project 2.7 remake.
Yes.
It has to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because 7 remakes, you're going to get all the
Man.
people that grew up with PlayStation into it. And
Yeah. Well, 7 remake is both the best and worst thing that's happened to them.
well, get used to it.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. It's not going anywhere. It's gonna be a while.
I originally felt this was a 3-game thing, but they're probably going to stretch it out as long as they can.
I mean, they've got a
Yeah,
mobile
they gotta-
VR game now.
Get used to FF7. It ain't going nowhere.
I like FF7. I hope they don't wear out its welcome though.
It probably will, but
Yeah, they will.
We'll
They
see.
will. They'll find a way. They always do.
well, given the I don't want to talk about where I think they're going, but I'm pretty sure Eris isn't dying. So-
I told you that before those games came out,
I
and
know.
you said no.
well, because it would be sacrilege.
No, they wouldn't do that. And I was like, man. And especially now that I know what happens in remake, like absolutely, that's why they do it. And you know what? In my opinion, they justified it. I'm all for it. Go for it. Edit out. What's that place? Cosmo Canyon.
Well,
Go
I
crazy.
mean, yeah, get rid of those smelly Cosmo Canyon.
Except
hippies.
for keep Bugenhagen.
Yeah, I wanna see what they
Don't
do with-
upgrade his model.
I want to see what they do with Buchanan.
Please make him a floating circle.
Yeah, that's what I hope so.
floating circle with arms. And I would also like it if his little stargazing facility looks exactly like it did on the PS1.
I hope so.
Cosmo Canyon should just be like Shadow Moses was in MGS4, but instead of upgrading it, they just don't.
I
Right?
yeah, I agree. Well, I don't even know what the hell they were going for with Bugenhagen's model. It looks like nothing. It looks ridiculous.
It's interpretive, man.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, Square Enix's biggest franchise may have some tough competition from its newly declared next big franchise, Outriders. Eurogamer's Matt Wales reports that with over 3.5 million unique players since launch, amassing an average playtime of over 30 hours, and extremely high engagement for cooperative play, Square Enix is feeling bullish on People Can Fly's non-live looter shooter. What do you think about Square Enix's new direction?
I don't care. Looter shooter, immediately turn off right there.
Yeah.
You know what? Good for them for releasing a game for the new consoles.
Yeah, I'll give them that.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, Square Enix does try to do Western things. Like that's the whole reason they got into Tomb Raider. So I don't know. Like I feel like why get into the looter shooters now?
I wonder, did they put any numbers on how much of this is Game Pass?
They didn't, but the article kind of acknowledges like, well,
It
a
has
lot
to
of
be
that's the
quite a
Game
bit.
Pass. Like they said, the average playtime per player is 30 hours.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious what the hardcore playtime is because 30 hours isn't a whole lot for that kind of game.
They should use the median.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if
Yep.
there's just a really big outlier there that's outweighing that average.
Yeah.
Outrider, if you will.
Yeah, an
Yeah.
outrider.
Because if you look at like the people that are super into Destiny, like 30 hours is really nothing
That's
for
chump
a looter
change,
shooter. So I'm curious what the higher end of that is, but I also this is like the genre that least appeals to me.
I don't know
So-
anything about this game other than it had that funny little cutscene of the guy jumping over a little hole, and it made that into a cutscene. But that's about all I know. I also know that a lot of enthusiast press was real excited for it because there was nothing else to be excited about, and that was when I felt the most disconnected I've felt with the modern landscape that I felt in a while. Like, man, you must be desperate to care about Outriders.
Anything for these new consoles is going to get more attention than it deserves.
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like I don't have standards that often, but for this is something I have standards for.
Well, I
I'll
agree.
not get excited for a game just because it exists on a new console.
I completely agree because when I look at this, I'm like, who could possibly
Especially
care?
with backwards compatibility. Why would I care?
Well, yeah. So I'm confused. Like, I understand people being desperate to play something on their new machines, but with backwards compatibility, just play something that's interesting.
Yeah, you could just play all the Mass Effect games, I guess.
Just play a Demon's Souls. I don't know, the one PS5 game or Returnal, I guess. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
people should value themselves better.
Well, yeah,
Amen.
I'm not gonna play something just because it's new.
It's just look, it's on my new thing. I can pay $70 for it, and I can gear up.
That would work in the PS4 era. There's nothing out,
Oh,
and
yes.
Infamous Second Son is out, so I
Well,
guess we'll
that
play
was a
that.
good game. So
That was
how about
like
you
4
lie and
hours of
shut your face?
mediocrity.
That wasn't mediocre. It was 4 hours of high quality entertainment.
But you go I think I bought Need for Speed Hot Pursuit or whatever at
You
PS4
did.
launch because there's nothing to play. But these consoles, you can play whatever you want. I can get off this podcast right now and boot up Tales of Cold Steel or
Why
Trails of
don't
Cold
you?
Steel. Oh, because I beat it last year. I don't want to go
Oh.
back to it, but I could.
Made it again.
I think to call this their next big IP is, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'd be careful.
Yeah, because I think when people start developing games for PS5 and you start getting games actually released, stuff like this is just going to vanish, in my opinion. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
But-
remember on the 360? Remember Graw?
No,
Yeah,
Remember
that was a big
Blinks,
deal.
the Time Cat?
I do remember
No,
Blitz the Timecast.
It was Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter was a big deal when the 360 came out, but nobody remembers Graw 2. It just didn't matter. Rockstar Table Tennis, that couldn't have come out more than a year into a console's life. It just couldn't have.
Fantavision. When there was nothing to play on
True.
PS2, people could pop up that
Yeah.
Fantavision.
Yeah, that's right. Oni?
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that completely. I almost scolded you because I thought of Oni Musha, but Oni itself, Rockstar, that's before they hit big. So yeah, we'll see. To me, this looks like a painfully generic game that you really couldn't pay me to play, but
I think that's its appeal.
Yeah.
we will see. Once Kojima gets his PS5 game out there, if people are still interested in this kind of shit, but we'll see.
Well, speaking of something we don't need to wait to see, IGN's Kat Bailey wrote a special report on the decline of once beloved developer Blizzard, which has struggled to maintain its talent and prestige in the face of a perception of declining quality. Did you guys get a chance to read this one?
I did.
Personally, I
Me
think they're
too.
getting what they deserve.
First of all, I want to compliment this IGN article because I can't think of the last time I saw such interesting long-form reporting from IGN. So, well
That was
done.
a surprising
Sure.
source.
I usually expect something like this from Kotaku when they try to do something good, but this is solid reporting, so good work. I feel like the writing on the wall has been there forever, you know? What do you expect? You get bought out by Activision. This is going to happen.
You know, my feel on this is that other than World of Warcraft and I guess Hearthstone, it feels to me like they've in one way or another continued to squander and stumble throughout the past decade.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all feel
Even
the
with
same.
those,
Yeah, I
games
mean,
are
even with
really
those
fun
to an
too.
extent, they haven't meaningfully iterated on World of Warcraft. It's still
It's a shell of itself.
it is that 2004 game with a bunch of new layers stacked on top of it. But that game is old. It is long in the tooth at this point, nearly 20 years old, without a major, huge update of. I mean, other than expansions and all that. But when I say
But no
huge
real
update,
mechanical
right?
update.
Yeah, nothing crucial to the experience. And Hearthstone has had some bumps. I meant more in terms of profit. Like those games still can make money. Someone in here in this article from IGN even mentions, you know, we can't rely on Hearthstone and World of Warcraft to bail us out forever, which is kind of what it feels like they've done. Because I mean, to me, like I can't. Overwatch still exists,
Does it?
but yes, but I can't think of a game in recent times that feels like it has just wasted its potential so much. Like,
Destiny.
well, okay, I don't care about Destiny, so I guess that's my blind spot. But for me, like thinking back, and I've got people who get kind of defensive about this, but like you think about when Overwatch launched, that was a big deal. Like that was a huge
Yeah.
game. It really captured a lot of people's imaginations, younger people, the people who develop your audience going forward.
Mhm.
They were captured, but I work at a school and I very, very rarely hear about Overwatch anymore. I still hear about Fortnite. I still hear about Warzone or NBA 2K. Those
Among
studios
Us.
have
Yeah.
made hay with those games, but I do not really ever hear about Overwatch because, I mean, they stopped updating the original game. They've been languishing on this sequel that half of the people who follow Overwatch don't even understand to begin with. Like, because the sequel, why does it even exist? It's just it's a weird thing because they used to be so good at making these long-running successful games like StarCraft that people played for years and years after its release, but now their prized hog is Overwatch, which is a game that just seems to have bled a lot of its goodwill and continues to bleed that goodwill every passing day.
Yeah, it's interesting in the article that they mention they keep mentioning like Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 as like the coming saving graces. And I'm thinking like you think Overwatch 2 is going to be like I think the ship has sailed.
What even is it?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
if you have to ask what Overwatch 2 is and the answer takes more than one sentence, then I think you've created a problem.
I think Overwatch 2 would need to be so different in order to bring people into
But
it.
it's by
It's
design
not.
it's not.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
I think when it comes out, it's just going to do okay. You're going to get people like curious about it, but it's just going to drop off.
Yeah. I mean, I will probably boot up my Overwatch client when it comes out because from what I understand, I'll pretty much get the entire experience without paying anything, which is weird that they would spend all this time developing a sequel and not just iterating on the game that they have already, since that's kind of what they're doing.
Well, my understanding is you get the PvP changes, but you
Yes.
don't get the PvE part that they want
Yes.
to make.
But
Good luck.
I mean, who cares? Like, it's who cares about the PvE content? Overwatch is a PvP game.
the only people that care about like the story of Overwatch are so far gone. Like, they're,
Yeah, it has its super massive fanboys, but I mean, like the normal person who picked up that game when it launched and just liked matchmaking and playing a few rounds, like they're not gonna give a shit.
they're not coming in for that.
Yeah. And
The act like this game is going to be like we're coming back. Blizzard's back,
who is
baby.
this for?
It's not going to happen.
Who is this for? I
Now-
just don't get it.
Now,
I just don't
Diablo
get it.
4, there is a possibility. People do.
I was gonna talk about that. Have you seen the Path of Exile 2 trailer?
No.
Oh my god, it blows Diablo 4 out of the water.
Well, I'm sure. Look, I think Diablo 3 sucks ass.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like people, like Diablo's a name people will give a shot to, because hardcore people remember, like, oh, Diablo 2, I love that, and so they will at least give it a try. So if it's actually a good game, it could get people in, even though like you have stuff like Half of Exile 2 blowing at the shit
But
out.
do you really have faith that they won't just like stumble and bumble their way all the way there? Like, I mean, Diablo 3 is probably considered an internal success now, but how many years of failure did it take for them to right that ship?
Several.
Like,
Yeah.
you remember when that
Yeah.
thing launched and half the people couldn't even play it because it was always online for whatever godforsaken reason?
I do
Remember when
remember
that thing launched and it gave rise to one of our favorite phrases? Blizzard
Which one?
knows.
Oh, Blizzard knows.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And I'm someone who, enjoyed Diablo 3 at the time, but even I can look at it and say, like, they messed up. And how much money did they waste trying to fix that when they should have just, if they were a more competently run company these days, made it right the first time. And they spend like 8 years on these games, and they're not able to make them right anymore.
This is like maybe the last chance. when if this fails, I could see Blizzard just being like, "All right, well, we're only WoW," and then everyone else is like working on Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, it'll be Activision's thing. I mean, if Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 don't move the needle, they'll probably look over and say, "Hey, Hearthstone works and World of Warcraft works. So why don't you stop with your little experiments over there and just put your money where it belongs?"
This article is also like, it shows Blizzard's insanely out of touch though, because they mention a couple times the surprising sales of WoW Classic, and like that being a success wasn't really a surprise to me. People have been clamoring for that for years. I'm not surprised at all. I don't know how you could be so out of touch with your community.
And I believe the guy who said you think you want it but you do, I believe he's now the president of Blizzard, isn't he? J. Allen Brack.
I think so. Like nostalgia is always in vogue, and is there anything you like hear more about than like classic WoW stories? Like,
And Blizzard is very much a legacy company at this point, so the idea that nostalgia would be a surprise to them is weird. It's like, it's kind of like how Sony is, right? Sony has been around long enough that they can capitalize on nostalgia, so it's always weird when they're like, no, nobody wants to play old games. And Blizzard's a little bit of the same, because they're always kind of taken aback. And now they've started to invest in that, and they even failed at that, because World of Warcraft 3, or Warcraft 3 Reforged was an unmitigated disaster. But,
yes,
now it seems like with Diablo 2, I mean, all appearances are that will be successful, but hey, it took a lot of failure to get there too.
why would you trust it at this point though?
I didn't say I trust it.
I know, but I mean, like the general person, like after Warcraft 3 Reforged, you'd have to go.
I don't know that the general person knows about Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Well, yeah, but the target audience
well,
for Diablo 2 would know about it.
The Blizz drones.
Yeah.
Yes, but those Blizz drones are in different. Like Setzer said, they're playing Path of Exile now. Like the people I know, who were big Diablo players, even Diablo 3 players, whenever I talk to them about it now, they're on to Path of Exile or something else. Like they're getting their fix of what Blizzard does or used to do from a lot of different sources. You yourself were talking about Final Fantasy XIV and how much better that is than your memories of World of Warcraft. And so that's just another thing that Blizzard has seeded and failed to continue to advance on in a successful way.
If WoW had not been so stagnant, like I don't think FF14 could have survived the vanilla catastrophe if like
Yeah.
WoW was roaring. But because of what WoW is, FF14 was able to come back into something strong.
I wonder if it's a little bit, and I don't know if this is actually a thing, but I have to feel like it's a little bit of a thing. You know how with Star Wars, they have their big Star Wars celebration, and all those grown adults go and yip and holler about, whatever comic or TV series is being developed by Disney, right? And so if you're someone who's working on the Star Wars franchise, you see one of those things, and you go, yeah, hell yeah, man, Star Wars is never better, everybody loves it, everybody's super satisfied. And, that's their big connection to their community is those types of events. And Blizzard has BlizzCon, so their big connection is when their super diehard fans come out and say, "Oh hell yeah, Shadowlands is back to World of Warcraft being on top. Oh man, I love Diablo 2. Diablo 4 is gonna be so hype, so bitchin', so sweet, and then they aren't connecting though with the core fans that aren't crazy hype driven YouTubers basically. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, it
no, I
does.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's the same
So
sort of thing with fighting games, where it's just
right. Yeah, to me it feels like they are disconnected from real people, and they just think that all their fans are these frothing fanboys who will just leap at whatever bone is put in front of them. But I think it's pretty clear, someone in Blizzard, at least the people they interviewed, that's not, that's not gonna work anymore.
The ship has sailed.
Yeah, it worked when World of Warcraft was the biggest thing in the world because, at that point, the universe was a frothing fanboy for Blizzard because everybody played World of Warcraft. But
times have changed.
But they didn't. Again, they did not iterate on that in a way that kept those people around. And here I am in 2021 talking about World of Warcraft as a very much past tense thing. Like, yeah, that is a game I played. The idea of playing it today is insane. There's no way, because it's a fossil and it's been poorly optimized going forward for anyone who isn't just hooked to that drip anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it really pisses me off because I liked Overwatch, and God, I just hate everything they've done to it. And don't even get me started on 5v5 with roll queue still a thing. Like, God, what? Why would you force people to queue for a role they don't want to play?
Yeah, people want to play the way they want to play. You know how long the queue
times are for Overwatch on the Xbox? It's ridiculous. Unless you play as a tank, I think. It's either tank or healer, whichever one people want to play as less. You're waiting upwards of 10 to 15 minutes to get into a steady queue.
It's MMO queues, essentially.
Right, but it's the only game you're playing, so it's like, if I were on a computer, I could, minimize my tab. Or if I was playing FF14, perhaps, I could, run around and quest. But on Overwatch, I can sit there and look at the screen, and I can look at my stats, which suck, and I can look at my loot boxes, which I don't
doing
buy.
that in a shooter seems so stupid, though. Like, you're shooting, like you're playing to have fun.
And where did that decision come from?
It's a rock, paper, scissors game, I'm telling you.
Where did that decision come from? It came from their frothing fanboys who participate in their competitive mode, who watch the Overwatch League, who said, hey, your meta sucks, you need to fix it, you need to make this change. And those people will go on forums and say, yeah, this is a great change. But, the people who bought Overwatch in droves when it came out, like me, who made it the household name that it was in 2016, we see that and we go, God, I don't want to play this because I just want to play as McCree, but there's no way I'm going to be able to queue in less than 20 minutes now.
Oh, yeah. Like, if I'm not able to play as a healer, I just wouldn't play. So
yeah, it's stupid.
So
You mentioned Capcom, or you mentioned fighting games. It is like Street Fighter V, which launched with Capcom looking directly at their competitive community, but having blinders on to the people who
aren't
make
in it.
Street Fighter a success. The people like me who bought Street Fighter 4 and loved it because it was an awesome game, but is not going to buy Street Fighter 5 because I am not an insane person who can compete. And that's why these little indie games, well, I don't know that Path of Exile is little anymore, but, that's why these smaller scale games, relatively speaking, like Path of Exile, are just going to eat their lunch. And these other small studios in this article that are formed by these Blizzard folks that are going to make an RTS and, presumably some action RPGs along the way, I mean, I would imagine that those games are going to do a much better job of capitalizing on that talent, and they'll have smaller budgets, and because of that, I think they'll be a lot more long-term successful than some of these Blizzard games might end up being.
The good thing about, FF14, if you want to be a hardcore player and, play without as much, notifications, whenever a big enemy attacks you, there's, they kind of, highlight where it's going to go. If you want to play without that, with that stuff off, you're able to. Like, there's hardcore options, but with like a lot of Blizzard stuff, it's just like you're playing this way and that's it, and
Wow.
that sucks.
And somebody will listen to this and say, well, there's an arcade mode in Overwatch where you can play as whatever
That's not what
character
people
you
are
want.
playing.
And that's different because, one, it's a separate queue, so there's way less players in that, so you're not getting the quick play audience, which means you're waiting even longer. And from what I understand, they even rotate the arcade mode, so it's not like you can always get that. So, if you want to say that to me, I will tell you, fuck right off, because I know that exists, and I don't care.
It's kind of like Anthem, where everybody on the outside can tell this is going to be like Overwatch 2 is just going to be nothing. It's going to be like a flop. But
I don't even know if it'll be nothing, but I don't think it's going to be the thing that this article indicates they think it's going to be.
no, well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I
It's
mean.
going to
though.
be like a hit with those people who are still playing Overwatch, but those people, like, you don't need to market to those people.
No, they are going to be there regardless.
They'll continue to buy loot boxes on Overwatch 1 forever.
Again, the people that give a shit about Overwatch's story are so far gone. They'll just
but
buy
you need
whatever.
to be thinking about, people like you, Derek, who did buy Overwatch. There's no way you're going to even consider Overwatch
No
2.
chance.
Why would
No
you?
chance.
Yeah. They've done nothing to address any of the concerns you would have had.
I liked playing
their
as
new
Mercy,
content-
and that's it.
Their new content is laughable. It's just, PvE content. Setzer loves the Titanfall 2 campaign, but I think we know that the Titanfall 2 campaign did not help that series branch out the way they wanted. It was the multiplayer that still carried that flag.
Team Fortress 2 added a PvE mode, man versus machine, and I believe that was a free update. I mean, that's kind of what I would
Yeah,
expect.
those things
out
are
of-
cool.
Mhm.
Those are fun distractions, but it's not the game. You've got to fix the game.
Yeah, it's true though. I mean, like people
You're
play
out,
Call
you're
of
out,
Duty.
you're out.
Exactly, you're out. You play Call of Duty for the multiplayer, not the story. So
Yeah, they figured that out.
they did.
They did, and that's why that series, despite how much I might dislike it, is
That's
still
why it's hanging in
successful.
there.
Because
So
they figured out what their people wanted, and they do it. So, Blizzard needs to get its head out of its ancient, enormous, gaping ass.
it won't.
And-
So R.I.P. Blizzard, 2023.
On the bright side, their classic content. I said this a few weeks ago, but I've heard that their Blizzard arcade collection is very solidly put together. I've heard that it includes the SNES and Genesis versions of Lost Vikings.
They did a good job
Which
of
is a
putting
really
some
cool
ROMs
touch.
together.
Yeah, hey, most people are bad at that, so good for them. And maybe Diablo 2 will be all right. I'm probably gonna play it, but that old content ain't gonna do it all. So
I'm gonna buy this
What?
CCP bullshit.
yeah, probably.
And finally this week, an obituary of sorts for the years-long GPU drought created by would-be crypto magnates. Matt Woobling, VP of Global GeForce Marketing, posted on the official NVIDIA blog this week that the company will be intentionally stunting the hash rate of new RTX 30 series cards in an effort to make them less desirable for Ethereum crypto mining and
Thank
more
you.
accessible for their intended customers. Good riddance.
Thank you. Fuck off, crypto miners.
Amen.
Like the cards are so expensive on the secondhand market, it's ridiculous. I feel like even if you were to buy a pre-built, those prices have gone way up because people want these cards for mining. So
Yeah.
so good. People can actually get them for what they're supposed to be for. Like I think like 3080s are so expensive on the secondhand market.
And you can't buy them new.
No.
You have to
can't.
buy them used these days after they've been burnt out by, years and years of calculation in a crypto farm.
I got my 1080, I think, right before people started going crazy on the GPU thing. But I imagine I couldn't have afforded it. Prices are insane for crypto, like the GPUs. So this is great. I'm happy they're doing this.
Me too. I'm guessing, the secondhand market will be bought up for a while, but once these, hash limited cards start to matriculate, the market will start to loosen up finally. Maybe I can upgrade to a 30 card.
Yes, because I would like to upgrade at some point because my card does not support ray tracing. It's just like I'm not paying like $1,500 for a graphics card. Just not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
exactly.
days of the Titan or whatever are over. They don't cost that
Mhm.
much anymore. So thank goodness, thank you Nvidia.
Now about those Linux drivers.
Well, I guess that'll do it for us this week. You can reach us on Twitter at alltodaypod or on email alltodaypodcast@gmail.com. This is Derek.
Setzer.
And Cheston.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Adios.
See ya.